And what I am able to do is to combine. If I am going to Sydney, and perhaps it's a trip for health promotion, well, I tie in tourism with it, and vice versa. So, it is a bit of a balancing act, but we're very fortunate. We have very professional staff. We have a very established industry. And, for instance, at the Tie-Ins Conference, Tourism Industry Association Conference in December, it's not just a government plan, or it's not a department plan, it's a plan of the industry. And that plan on marketing and product development is something that we've continually committed to work in partnership with the industry to put forward. And I think we're seeing the results of it. The tourism industry has seen some big challenges over the last few years, be it with SARS, which, although in Ontario it affected us here in Nova Scotia, or be it, of course, 9/11. And when you have a country next door at war and continues to be at war, that affects tourism here in our province, as is weather and many other things. But it's what we can do. Now, the member, I don't know if he wants me to answer the culture question now, or if he would like to get into more depth. On the cultural side, and I'm just asking for some numbers with respect to the change. One of the reasons for the change in the culture division, there's certainly been no cut. In fact, there are additional dollars for organizations and also for many things. Book publishers, there's an additional commitment of $50,000. That's part of our blueprint commitment, and there's a new strategy with respect to that. There's Gaelic initiatives which are seeing dollars there. But a couple of the reasons, and money for activities, cultural activities and organizations. But one of the reasons for the change is because you see the money that was there for the Congrès Mondial Acadien, which was one time. So obviously the dollars, which the amount for that was $400,000. So that money wasn't back in the budget this year. So when you see our budget actually moving forward, we had to make up even that $400,000 gap. Plus, there's another $200,000 which has traditionally been in our budget, which was done in partnership with the Ministry of Acadian Affairs and Acadian Affairs. So that $200,000 has been transferred. So certainly, it's not a reduction in the amount of money we're spending culturally. It's simply a transfer with respect to those dollars, and more dollars being invested in the cultural division, focusing on things like the music sector, putting that position in place, which was needed. Although we have a cultural industries aspect, and people, we wanted to ensure that with the strategy, with the Junos coming forward, East Coast Music Awards, and many other initiatives, that we had the appropriate capacity in place to deal with those issues. So there are reasons for that. The member also mentioned the art gallery. The art gallery's budget this year versus last year, Mr. Chairman, was $18,000 difference. The member is correct. An increase. So it's 2%. It's certainly not a huge increase, but there are other investments we made at the branch, in the Yarmouth branch in Yarmouth, through the art gallery, which I know my colleague's a big supporter of. We saw an additional investment during the last couple of months of $250,000. Well, that certainly shows a commitment, and that's not just for Yarmouth. That's the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, and that's an investment in the Art Gallery. We also want to make sure in any investments in the Art Gallery. Oh, sorry. Your time is getting short. I'll cut off my comments short, but to put it into context, we want to make sure that the dollars we're investing in the gallery because are being utilized to the fullest. My colleague, Minister of Transportation and Public Works, and that department has been very good to the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia and will continue to be very good. But we need to make sure, and I need to ensure my colleagues, that every dollar is being spent in the most appropriate fashion. And, you know, you take a look at Rodin happening right now, and I think artistically, I think it is working very well. And I know there's other questions, so I will take my seat.
Thank you. The honourable member has about 45 seconds remaining.
Well, I guess we're going to have to wait another year for all this, but the minister has to realize with that, you know, the groups and organizations out there are concerned with what's going on in the province, especially with your caseload on taking on additional portfolios. And I guess we'll have to wait to later on. I don't know if there'll be time left over to get to some specific questions, but I just want the minister to know that, you know, the groups out there are concerned with what's going on and the lack of funding at times. And, you know, it's hard for them to come directly to the government. That's why they come to the opposition parties, because they don't want to jeopardize future funding. And it's very volatile out there, I think, and they just want to know that the minister is committed to looking at their concerns, especially when the government wants to increase our tourism numbers by 2012, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, member. I recognize the member for Halifax Citadel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps before I begin, Mr. Chair, do you mind if I make an inquiry about the amount of time that's left?
There's approximately 49 minutes.
49 minutes in total?
Caucus, yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question relates, it won't be a surprise that I'm asking questions about the VLTs issue. My question for the minister is whether or not he believes that a phased-out ban is doable.
Thank you, member. I recognize the minister.
I thank the member for the question, and I know that this is not a surprise, as I know the member has quite an interest, and I applaud the member's interest in this very serious issue. Mr. Chairman, the government has taken a look at a variety of things that we could do, and we went out to ask the public what their thoughts were. We made very clear decisions on the gaming strategy, and the government's position is clearly outlined in that. That being said, we are also committed to on a regular basis reviewing what's happening and making sure what is happening is working. My interest in health promotion is to make sure that those who have addictions or those at risk are being served in the best possible way. Again, I think it's important that in the future, on a continuous basis, be it through the social economic study or otherwise, that we continue to review if what we're doing is working.
Thank you, Minister. I recognize the member for Halifax Citadel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question for the minister again is whether or not he believes that a phased-out ban is doable.
Thank you, member. I recognize the Minister of Health Promotions.
Mr. Chairman, we've said, and the Premier has said, that what we have to do is find a balance, and we have to be there to ensure that we are there to regulate and to make sure that appropriate steps are being taken. The government is not moving forward on a phased-out approach, as the member has indicated, and we have said that very clearly in strategy, and you know, that is the position of myself, and that is the position of our government.
Thank you. I recognize the member for Halifax Citadel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, my question for the third time is whether or not the minister believes that a phased-in ban of VLTs is a doable thing.
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Well, Madam Chairman, I apologize, and welcome to the chair. Anything is doable, Madam Chair, and you know, we've seen it, different approaches taken in different jurisdictions, and I know the member has quoted some of the ones in this House. I am aware that there are a variety of approaches. Our approach has been a balanced approach, and that is clearly outlined in our strategy, and that is my position as well as the government's position.
Honourable Member from Halifax Citadel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for the answer. I think you're right that anything is doable with the right will, and it was a point that I expressed earlier today with respect to this particular issue. And I guess the balance that needs to be struck is one between the gravity of the problem and the ease with which one can fix that. The gravity of the problem, I think, is well known, and it's been set out most comprehensively in the 2003 comprehensive the prevalence study, and the prevalence study established that there are 15,000 problem gamblers in Nova Scotia. Approximately half of those problem gamblers are VLT users. The great proportion of calls to the gambling helpline is with respect to VLTs. It is described by councillors, some of whom I've spoken with just in the last week or so, as being representing over 90% of the problems with respect to gambling addictions. In some recent studies, and I'd like to just share this with the Minister and the House, and I'm happy to provide this to the House if necessary. This is a study out of the University of Illinois that said that this is with respect to Gamblers Anonymous people who were surveyed. 26% said they had divorced or separated due to gambling, 34% lost or quit a job, 44% said they had stolen from work to pay their gambling debts, 21% had filed for bankruptcy, 18% had gambling-related arrests, 66% said they contemplated suicide, 16% had indeed attempted suicide. Knowing, my assumption is that the problems in that particular jurisdiction aren't dissimilar to the extreme and terrible problems that we have in Nova Scotia. Knowing that, my question for the Minister is as follows. If this were an issue involving $133,000 worth of revenue instead of $133 million worth of revenue, do you think that we would address it and ban these VLTs?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Well, I think, Madam Chair, that's a hypothetical question. And I think whenever we make a decision as a government, we take a look at not necessarily what could be, if that was the case, but what is. And the reality of it is the government does take in a great deal of revenue with respect to VLTs. And we have not hidden from the fact that is the case. What we have attempted to do through the gaming strategy, and really one of the first of its kind nationally, and the approach that we have taken through the consultation piece with the Gaming Corporation and Health Promotion through Addiction Services, is to enable people to provide their feedback and then to move forward in a strategy which we felt was in the best interest of Nova Scotians, with the best information that we have available at the present time. And I think we need more research. We need more research with respect to BLTs. We need more surveillance as to what's happening. We need to ensure that the money we're investing is helping those who need the help. The $3 million is going to be going in a number of areas, in public awareness, and best practices models, in trying some pilot projects per se, in coordination and staff people, in DHA treatment needs, early intervention, prevention and treatment research. And I think it's going to be vital for us to take a look at what comes back in the socioeconomic study. It's going to be vital for us to take a look at the next problem, gambling prevalence, the study, and to ensure that our strategies, continue to be evolving and develop accordingly to that. And I'm certainly not suggesting that everything the government's put forward is the answer to all addictions problems in the province. And I think that would be neglectful of me to say such a thing. But we are making the best decisions we feel with the evidence that we have at our fingertips.
The Honourable Member from Halifax Citadel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The member spoke, or the Minister spoke about the costs associated with this, and I cite for his reference just on that point. He has indicated that this exercise actually goes to generate revenue from the government's perspective that is spent a lot of revenue, as he describes it. I want to cite for him some research from Harvard Medical School, Dr. Howard Schaefer, who allowed that the cost to taxpayers is $2 for every $1 that the government brings in with respect to this. And it is part of a wide series of research that suggests that the economic impact from this problem, from gambling, and I would suggest with respect to VLTs in particular, is a negative one. So, in fact, the government's commitment to the $133 million, which it often says is going to health, roads, education, and various other things, is illusory. And I know that the minister must be familiar with the GPI Atlantic statement. I've actually used this or referenced it on a number of occasions. This is a Nova Scotia well-respected research organization which says in a news release that was put forward on October 27th, 2004, the following. This is on page 2, top of the heading, Social Economic Costs Reduce Profits. It says, the GPI study cites evidence that the government's estimates of gambling profits may be illusory because it does not account for the higher health care, justice, social service, productivity, losses, and other costs generated by problem gambling. Deducting these costs would dramatically reduce the government's apparent take from gambling. Explicitly counting and recognizing these costs, says GPI Atlantic, could help reduce the apparent allure of gambling profits and strengthen efforts to reduce problem gambling. I guess I say that because what we have is a Nova Scotia well-respected researchers, Minister, who are saying that the figures, the $133 million that we have is illusory. We have specific research from other jurisdictions that says that it's a net negative benefit. And so it begs the question, and the minister has admitted that perhaps anything's possible, and he's familiar with the experiences that have been had in other jurisdictions. And I want to cite one in particular. I know this is the one that is cited most often, and it is because this is the only one where there's actually been done research, with the small exception of South Dakota, which had a very similar result. So in the two jurisdictions where there was actually research done after a ban was in place, there was a dramatic decline in the addictions levels in those jurisdictions. And in fact, this has happened in the jurisdiction of South Carolina. The minister's familiar with this. The experience in South Carolina was an overwhelming success by anyone's standards. And I guess I'm trying to get some insight for Nova Scotians on how this government, in the face of research that it funded with GPI, research that was from that says that the gross numbers are illusory, research that says that from other jurisdictions that says that in fact this activity may be losing us money instead of making us money, clear indication in research from other jurisdictions that in fact this is possible and there could be a huge benefit. Why the minister the minister responsible for the promotion of health in Nova Scotia didn't ensure that we protect Nova Scotians fully in light of the evidence and at least introduce a plan to phase out these machines. And let me attach to that, because that's related to earlier questions that I had, let me attach one other question that's associated with that. Actually, why don't I leave that question? I'll just leave you with that question, and then I'll come back to my second question as soon as you're finished.
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the member suggests that somehow the government was not interested in ensuring the protection of Nova Scotians. And I certainly disagree with that member. If he takes, and I know he's looked at the strategy inside out and looked at various pieces of literature, albeit I think that it's safe to say that there's not enough literature out there on the issue such as VLTs, and there's simply not. We need more research in this area, and we recognize that as a government, and many individuals have said that to us, and we will continue to do more research in that area. But, in protecting Nova Scotians or working with Nova Scotians that either are at risk or do not have any sort of addiction at all, or those who are at risk, it's important that we put in the appropriate prevention and treatment programs, and that is where that $3 million is targeted, in addition to the dollars already being spent. And that's why we're focusing on the many areas of, be it public awareness. And the member mentioned the helpline. Well, the helpline's numbers, if you take a look at February, March, or January, February, March, 64%. There's a huge increase, more than 50%, more than 60%. And that is because of, in many cases, because of the marketing that we have done around the helpline. And there hasn't been enough such marketing done in the past. As well, along with the public attention is received in provincial papers and local papers on this issue. And I think as a result of the strategy, it's important that we continue to do more research, and it's clearly identified. And I'm going to give a quote to the member, because he certainly was using a quote. I don't know which one it was. It was GPI, was it? Member, I think we were. This is one from Dr. Harold Wayne, a PhD. He's a skilled social scientist who has conducted scores of social research, projects, effectiveness and efficiency studies, policy analysis, program evaluations, population surveys, and community research projects. He is acknowledged as one of the leading international authorities in the field of gambling research. And here, and I quote, I am very impressed, and he's referring to Nova Scotia's gaming strategy. I am very impressed with this initiative and the direction you are taking. In my closing summary at the recent Alberta Gaming Research Institution in Edmonton, I referred to Nova Scotia as the bellwether province when it comes to gaming policy and responsible gaming initiatives. Most importantly, no one disagreed with me, end quote. And there's other quotes as well that I can refer to as people acknowledging that Nova Scotia is taking a leadership role in this. And yes, we are finding that balance. The recognition that yes, we do have gaming in many forms, be it bingo or be it VLTs or be it, I know in my own area, in harness racing. At the same time, we are ensuring that the health and the promotion, prevention side is also being invested in finding that balance.
The honourable member from Halifax-Sidney.
I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Minister, and on the surface, that's almost a compellable case that you're making. Except the reality is that the advertising and the promotion that you've recently done really came after a great deal of public pressure. I can remember sitting down with officials from the Gaming Corporation on a number of occasions when they told me the stark reality that for every $500 that is put into a VLT, only 310 of those dollars come back. And at that time, there was no television advertising with respect to the use of VLTs. And I wondered why in front of them there wasn't some kind of stark advertisements in the way, and I would commend your department for your effective advertisements that relate to smoking cessation. Very effective, direct to the point kinds of messages that don't appear with respect to television advertising. And I was suggesting at that time that if $190 is lost on average, for every $500 that you're putting into a VLT, why don't you do something simple like have a split screen, a family going off on a $190 weekend to White Point Lodge or something like that, and then another family in the screen beside it standing around a parent who's pumping $500 worth of loonies into the machine. And when you talk about who's taken the lead, it is the people of Nova Scotia who have actually taken the lead. And in terms of the government's commitment to this, it's clear that the advertising came out at the start of this year. The advertising wasn't something that was promoted over a long period of time, but the advertising in this particular area is something that has appeared really in the last several months when the people of Nova Scotia started to speak out. And the people, frankly, who have been most effective in this are the problem gamblers. And if there's something that's unique about Nova Scotia that gives people the most hope, frankly, it is that the people of Nova Scotia who are suffering from this problem, who are en masse beginning to break the silence. And over time, I would suggest with the greatest respect, Minister, that there's not much that you, your government, or the people in the NDP or the Liberal Party will be able to do about it, because it will be the people of Nova Scotia who ultimately have their will reflected in the policies that are put forward by a government. And it will be those people who will ensure that Nova Scotia does become a beacon, a true beacon over time, because as we've heard from addiction experts in the past, recently, on the day, in fact, that your policy was announced, I recall a member, an addictions expert from the Capital District Health Authority, saying on television that it's not clear whether or not this might increase people's appetite, reducing the number by 800 VLTs. It may, in fact, create not help the problem at all, because especially for those people who currently have a problem, those people will continue to try to find their way to these machines. Let me move on to some additional comments. Do you cited research just a little while ago from an international source, and I'm sure you or members of your staff are familiar with Mark Dickerson. Mr. Dickerson is recognized perhaps as the world authority when it comes to VLT addictions. And Mr. Dickerson says that these machines themselves are inherently addictive. They're unlike any other type of gambling or gaming, and they are inherently addictive. And that's why they're called the crack cocaine of gambling. Do you believe that these machines are inherently addictive?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, first of all, I'm just going to go back to the radio ads before I get to the second part of the member's question. The member is right. The fact that we invested more money in the area of the radio ads, as an example, I think has struck a chord with many Nova Scotians who need our help. And those radio ads were in the planning, and we had focus testing done and such. And that was done even in advance of release of the strategy itself, because we recognize that we need to do more in that area. So we need to take a comprehensive approach. As part of that comprehensive approach, yes, we needed to make changes to the machine, because what we can see and what we have heard is that the continuous form of gambling and VLTs, and that's why people so often talk about VLTs when talking about gambling, is because it is that continuous form. So making some of the changes, which we are making, be it on, for instance, changing the hours, or be it on other aspects, on the stop button is probably the best example on the machines, that it causes the machines to slow down. It causes that continuous play to perhaps be less addictive. And Madam Chair, I guess you could point to anything, and any, whether be it some people get hooked on alcohol, other people get hooked on drugs, and no matter what you're talking about, people can often get addicted, and different forms of gambling as well, and be it in one form of another, and they may have addictive personalities. It could be an addiction to shopping and or alcohol or nicotine or gambling or whatever it could be. So I don't know if that necessarily answers the member's question to his satisfaction, but if you would, I'm sure he'll follow up on the question.
Would the Honourable Member allow for an introduction? Thank you. The Honourable Member from Colchester Musquodoboit Valley on an introduction.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I would like to draw to the attention of all honourable members four distinguished guests in our East Gallery. Well, five, yes. And there's probably more, but I would draw your attention to the four folks that are sitting on the front row. And I'm speaking about, to my far left would be the president of the Provincial Progressive Conservatives, Mr. John McDonnell. Good afternoon, John. Beside John is no stranger to the Nova Scotia legislature. He's a former MLA, former cabinet minister, a very successful businessman, and I'm speaking about Mr. Ken Stretch. And good afternoon, Ken. And beside Ken, I'm especially pleased to introduce the Progressive Conservative candidate for the riding, the beautiful riding of Chester St. Margaret's, and that would be Ken's daughter, Judy Stretch. Welcome, Judy. And accompanying the trio is Ms. Janet Friday-Dory. Welcome, Janet, as well. So, used to be a student of Bill Estabrook's. Well, we certainly won't hold that against you, Janet. And Peter, you can do an introduction at another time, but welcome to you as well, Peter. And thank you very much, and of course, thank you to the Honourable Member for Halifax Citadel for graciously yielding the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Member from Halifax Citadel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome to our guests. All the best to Ms. Stretch in what lies ahead and what I expect will be an election that's called sometime soon. Madam Chair, the minister finished by asking whether or not he had answered my question, and I guess the concern that I have is that, yes, he did answer the question. The analogies with respect to addictions to shopping and other types of addictions, frankly, Madam Chair, miss the point entirely, and it misses the point with respect to the nature of this. If what appears to be lost on a number of members of the government is that this type of machine, according to the literature, is a killing machine. It is a killing machine. According to the literature, it seems to suggest that almost anyone who is put before these machines would develop a considerable problem. And when, in fact, they leave these machines, they don't even go to other types of gambling addictions. That the mechanisms used to draw in people's addictions aren't dissimilar to the worst examples in history of brainwashing that we've had just in this past century. And so to compare it with shopping is completely, and I appreciate the members making the point that that's one of a number of addictions, but I would like to make this point that this, and it seems to be one that is lost on others, that the research suggests that this particular machine is unlike anything we've ever seen, and it's why this party has been saying that the experiment that we began, that everyone began at one period of time, I'm sure the NDP would wash their hands of any involvement with this, but the experiment that began here has been a total and utter failure. And the responsibility for that rests on many sides, but the evidence is more clear now than it has ever been that these machines actually are killing machines that create blood money. And the research with respect to suicide is just overwhelming. The suicidal ideation with respect to gambling addictions is greater than any other type of addiction. Let me move to the go-forward plan with respect to this, Madam Chair. The government has not said since it came forward with the new strategy that this was about the money. They've said we didn't go all the way with respect to VLTs because it can't be done because of these gray machines. I've asked the minister about to answer questions with respect to that. But we found out, well, first of all, with respect to the prevalence study from 2003 clearly set out the problems with respect to having ATM machines in the establishments where there are VLTs. And we also have research that surfaced, I believe it was last week or the week before, 10 days or so ago, that suggests that bill acceptors could have been removed. And I guess I'm wondering if the plan was to go up to the edge of the cliff and do everything you possibly could without making things worse somehow through an underground industry, as is being argued by the government side, why, out of a principle of precaution, did the government not remove the bill acceptors and the ATMs, even out of a principle of precaution? And you might say that the evidence is unclear, but as a precautionary principle, wouldn't it have made sense?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Well, Madam Chair, I think the member actually gave the answer to my question, his question in advance of me giving the answer. The fact is that the evidence with respect to such things as bill acceptors is not clear. And we do need more research in areas like that. We need more evidence. It's something we need to continue to monitor. Madam Chair, we looked at that as well as many other possibilities that we could move forward on, and we made a very clear decision to make the changes that we did make, be it on the stop button, be it on the hours, and be it with respect to the removal of many machines. Now, I think this is a very progressive step forward. It's a huge step forward. If someone told me a year and a half ago, or I'm sure my colleagues who sat in government pre-1999, if someone said in 1998 or 99 that the government of the day would make such a decision and remove and take the steps that we did, I'm sure they would say at that time, as we're saying here, that it's a very progressive, and not only us that's saying it, but we have others saying it. I mentioned Dr. Harold Wine as one example. And these are people whose job it is to take a look at the research which is available, to conduct projects and to move forward on various studies and policy analysis and such. And it's not just us saying it, they are saying it. We are on the leading edge of what is happening even across the country. And it may not be to the satisfaction of every member in this House, but it is a huge step forward. And I think it's important that we have to recognize that and get to the people who need our help, and that's through the prevention and the treatment programs.
The Honourable Member from Halifax Citadel.
Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, it may be redundant for me to repeat the question again. It was on the element of the precautionary principle. The remover of the bill acceptors was costed out at $16 million. That's a significant potential addiction level that's associated with that kind of consumption. And as a precaution in this matter, can the minister give us any kind of assurance that this was not done because it would have costed the government $16 million, or was the $16 million at the heart of it? A related question to what he had just provided to us is that he's referenced the research going in both directions on the matter of bill acceptors. Could he table for us a copy of the research on both sides that his office examined with respect to this particular matter? And let me move to a third matter. Is the Nova Scotia Gaming Foundation put on a very successful international conference that wasn't attended by any of the ministers back in October of this past year. But it was obviously a step in the right direction. It was recognized as one of the leading conferences of its type. It's the kind of work that the Gaming Foundation does best, but some people are speculating about whether or not the Gaming Foundation's mandate should be expanded such that it could have an advocacy role, not just a role in terms of public education. Would the minister support a mandate for the Gaming Foundation that involved some elements of advocacy?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think if you take a look at the process we went through with respect to review the memorandum of understanding that we had with the Gaming Foundation, the member is hitting a very important point, and that is the Gaming Foundation, as we've seen through the review, is that they do play a critical role. And they do have a mandate around which to operate by. I think it's important that the neutrality as well of that mandate be maintained as well, because there are many advocacy groups out there. What we need to ensure is that foundation is there to serve the best interests of Nova Scotians, of all of us, to ensure that community groups have opportunities to get funding for research. And when you're taking a look at areas such as research, we need to ensure that that body maintain a neutral position. Member might suggest that perhaps the government would have a biased position when it would come to something like that, when taking a look at a certain thing like bill acceptors or something else. You'll have advocacy groups suggesting to do one thing. I think it's important to have that neutral group in the middle to work with us to ensure that we do have that perspective coming in for government and for all Nova Scotians.
Halifax Citadel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the interest of time, I'll move on to the next part of my questioning, and it relates to a commitment that was given by the Minister of Health when he was in estimates, and I think the Minister of Finance in general. And I, through estimates both in this committee and in the Red Room, spoke to them about the issue of suicides, and I appreciate that not each of the three ministers have an opportunity to speak on this particular issue, but I know the minister responsible for the Office of Health Promotion was present when the questions were being asked of the Minister of Health with respect to taking positive action to ensure that there will be that the coroner will be engaged to determine whether or not there is an active process that could be properly resourced to track suicides from VLT addictions and gambling addictions here in Nova Scotia. I just would like a confirmation from the minister, having heard what you did on that previous occasion in committee, and the request again today, whether or not you too are committed to that exercise.
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Madam Chair, the member is correct. I wasn't here to listen to the debate of my colleague, the Minister of Health. And I do know that the Minister of Health, along with the Minister of Justice, who obviously has a very strong interest in the Chief Medical Examiner and what is happening there, along with health promotion, are all interested in taking a look at this particular issue and reviewing this issue, and then making a decision based upon that review, which will be done.
Member from Halifax Citadel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's the extent of my questions, and I'd like to turn them over to my colleague. I'd like to thank the Minister and his colleagues as well.
Honourable Member from Victoria the Lake. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Minister. I won't take too long. I'll get right to the point. Haven't got much time left anyway. Tourism for the many tourist operators in the Digby-Annapolis area. They feel they've been shortchanged by the Nova Scotia Department of Tourism. I don't know anywhere else, but I'm just speaking of the Digby-Annapolis area. This community's worked hard towards making Digby-Annapolis area a world first-class tourist destination. For the past 2 or 3 years this has gone on, and they're still working hard at it. And this area is a first-class quality tourist area, and it has great potential. Digby is also known, Digby is known for many things, and it's known for one of the most romantic towns in Canada. Come down and find out. The scallops do it. And Annapolis is known. Annapolis is known for the best, smallest town to live in the world. The first European settlers that come there, 400 years ago, they sailed all around this coast. And when they found the Digby Basin, Annapolis Basin, they sailed into it. And the message they sent home was, we found the best place you could ever look for. It's in the history books. Digby's also known for his world-famous Digby scallops. And it has the best whale watching industry, the best whale watching in Nova Scotia, in the Bay of Fundy. And if that's not enough, it has the biggest and best lobster fishery in this province, in this country. Big ones. The biggest. It's a major point. It's a major point for a destination for tourists in this province. And the people are telling me, and it's true, we haven't even got a welcome sign there where over 100,000 visitors comes off the Digby boat. There's no welcome sign. All there is alders growing up on both sides of the road. That's what we have there. So my question is for you, Mr. Minister, from the people down there, is the minister willing to look into this and make it his priority to look at this destination, look at this area and work towards it being a world's first-class eco-tourist destination?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Well, Madam Chair, that would be where the boat you referred to comes off, the Love Boat. Is it that you're... Yeah, you're one of the most romantic places. I know where I'm going on vacation this summer now, Madam Chair. I guess the member is right that Digby is a beautiful place, and I've had the opportunity to be out on the water in Digby, and I can attest to the beauty of Digby and that part of Nova Scotia. I've also been in the area where the member is referring to, and I think that's something we do need to take a look at with regards to the sign. And actually, I brought this up recently with our staff, because when you're coming off Pictou as well, we need to ensure that there's an appropriate welcome sign for Nova Scotia. It's an important entry point. We have it when you come off an international flight at the airport and many other places. And we work with our regional tourism associations with regards to what's on the blue signs, which you would see working with Transportation and Public Works. What we do have there is the Visitor Information Center, which I know that the member is aware of. The staff are professional. They provide quality service to those coming to Nova Scotia. But I will undertake to ensure that we review that situation, and also to add that part of the task force that we have with respect to ministers, and some of my colleagues are sitting on that task force, to take a look at the tourism issues, transportation, and many of the other departments which affect tourism. But I appreciate the member's question. I will undertake to have a review done of that situation.
Fellow member from Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I'm sure the people will be pleased to hear that. You know, the Department of Tourism knows the situation in Yarmouth with the Prince of Fundy gone from that area, the Scotia Prince, I'm sorry, from the Yarmouth area. Is the Department of Tourism concerned about that boat being gone? And if so, is it looking into some alternative way of bringing passengers in there?
Honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Yes, Madam Chair. The member brings up a very good point. There are many ways to travel to Nova Scotia. Obviously, of interest to the southern part of Nova Scotia, huge interest, is the traveler who comes be it through Bay Ferries or comes through Scotia Prince. Unfortunately, Scotia Prince will not be operating this year. That being said, I have taken the opportunity, along with my colleagues, both the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, the Minister of Natural Resources, in particular, because in the Yarmouth region, to meet with Bay Ferries and some of the leadership there on a couple of occasions. We're working very closely, first of all, to ensure that Nova Scotia and the brand of Nova Scotia and that of southwestern Nova Scotia is out there in the marketplace, so that people coming from the United States know that that although the Scotia Prince is not operating, they can still travel to Nova Scotia through Bay Ferries. And we've taken a number of steps with Bay Ferries on packaging, on marketing initiatives, and I can provide to the member examples of that. And already, for example, in motor coach, we have seen that motor coach activity that was going to be going through Scotia Prince go to Bay Ferries. Bay Ferries is taking a number of steps on increasing the number of trips back and forth through the season they're going to be taking. And we're still in discussions with Bay Ferries about the possibility of perhaps through the season, perhaps later in the season, of seeing some trips back and forth to Portland. Now, I don't know what will happen at the end of the day. Obviously, they have a business case to look at and to make a determination on that. But working with the Canadian Tourism Commission, working with those within the industry to ensure that the people in the northeastern United States, know that there's another way to travel here. And I think overall, the numbers for Nova Scotia will not be drastically affected by, without Scotia Prince. But what will be affected is the overnight stays in Yarmouth, and that concerns me. So overall, travelers, if they want to come here, they'll find a way to get here. But what is of concern is the room nights that people stay because of the way the schedules run for Scotia Prince, leaving that early time in the morning. And that is the concern we've been hearing from many places in Yarmouth.
The honourable member from Annapolis.
I don't know what makes Annapolis Royal the most lovable, but it's definitely not the Scallops. I'm not sure what they have down his way. Just a couple of questions, Minister, regarding Upper Clements Park. I know that there was an agreement that the local group, the Hand Society, have been running the park for a number of years in that 10-year period, and the contract was to expire. I'm just wondering the status of where we're at, as well as throughout my constituency and all over Nova Scotia. One of the issues that I've been hearing from the tourism operators, and I'll use the Historic Gardens in Annapolis Royal and the McDonald Museum in Middleton, has been the fact of that a lot of their operating capital is being eaten up in trying to maintain their property, trying to do, whether it be to repair the buildings and repair the roofs. And I'm wondering if there's any move afoot within the department to set a capital budget aside that groups can apply for every few years to use some of that money to maintain the existing infrastructure that we have.
Minister of Tourism, Culture and Heritage.
I think, and I want to make sure I picked up on the question correctly, Mr. Chairman, but I think it was broadly in heritage that you were referring to, or specifically on Annapolis Gardens, just broadly. Okay. And also, yes, the Upper Clements and the Hand Society. And Mr. Chairman, the agreement with the Hand Society for Upper Clements Park, I believe it's 2006 that agreement ends, I'm pretty sure. And that was a 10-year agreement. Yeah, so there's discussions now between, I'm not sure if it's January 1, but it may be, the member could be correct, I'd have to check that out. But there are discussions happening between those within our department and Hand Society. I realize that this is an important issue to the Hand Society, to the community, and we want to ensure that the steps that we take are in the best interest for tourism, are the best interest for the park, and recognizing that there is valuable summer employment in that particular area for many individuals. At the same time, recognizing that I think it's $300,000 a year that we're investing. I'll have to refer to those with the numbers beside me. But that money is a significant investment as well. So it's also the interest of the taxpayers in Nova Scotia. So whatever we do, those discussions are important. Again, that's a decision that my colleagues will have to make from there. The other aspect on the investment in heritage, we do need investment in many parts of of heritage. In buildings, we have many buildings which need to be appropriately maintained, and they can't be just, you just don't throw any regular roof on a heritage building. It has to be conducive with what that heritage building represents. The Minister of Economic Development has made some investments with respect to that in various small museums and other museums. And I know there'll be more coming out on more investments with respect to that. That's good news for us. Because we provide significant funding to those community museums. I think it's 68 community museums, 27 Nova Scotia museums, significant money, and Public Works as well, obviously, is investing in those well. But when you're dealing with something like Sherbrooke Village, I think it's 120 some odd buildings. I mean, that's a significant number of buildings. But we invest, I think it's over $900,000 in that those particular museum, and that's a big investment. But like anything else, I'd like to see more investment in that area.
And the time for Liberal Caucus has expired. I recognize the honourable member from Cape Breton West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Far be it for me to take issue with the member for Annapolis. Mr. Speaker, I have a number of issues I'd like to raise with the minister. Perhaps initially, with regards to Cape Breton Island, tourism, as he well knows, and as I'm sure the Minister of Energy well knows, tourism is extremely important. Could the minister, in perhaps 2 minutes or less, give us a thumbnail sketch of what the marketing strategy for Cape Breton Island, and in particular for the eastern side of Cape Breton Island, will be for the upcoming fiscal year?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism, Culture and Heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the member for the question. I don't want my back to, that's all right. There's a number of different aspects happening with respect to marketing. Certainly, Cape Breton Island is a jewel, I guess, in Nova Scotia's crown of various icons for tourism. And as I know the chairman would know that as well. And certainly, if you take a look at our overall marketing strategy, be it on the front page this year, it happens to be a picture of the Cape Breton Islands on the front page of the Doers and Dreamers Guide. You'll see it in our advertising, along with many other parts of Nova Scotia. You'll see, with respect to the partnership opportunities, which we have, and I can send that to the member or all members if they don't have a copy, of where we're marketing, be it in summer vacation flyers, Ontario Motor Coach Association, Reader's Digest, Canadian Living, very successful Toronto Trade and Leisure Show about a month ago, the Salon de Vacances in Montreal. We're promoting the cruise ships down in southern United States and with the Atlantic Cruise Ship Association, promoting the Fabulous Four in our golf product and our golf product line. There are many examples, and very often Cape Breton will, obviously as part of Nova Scotia, we're branding Nova Scotia, and at the same time working with Destination Cape Breton to promote Regional Tourism Association destination marketing opportunities. And so be it our investment in the cruise ship pavilion, which was almost $260,000, or the snowmobiling, which was $130,000. Viewscapes was $400,000 in Cape Breton. I know the member has particular interest on the eastern side of the island as well, but certainly, the road improvements which are happening on that side, I think are vital to tourism as well, and recognizing cultural events, be it the Big Pond Festival, which I'm very familiar with, or many other festivals in our festival and events guide. These are the sorts of things we're doing, and Cape Breton also received an additional 100 and. I'll get the appropriate number here. Destination Cape Breton received an additional $120,000, as did every Regional Tourism Association received additional funding, $120,000 before the end of the fiscal year, which helps them as well this year.
The honourable member from Cape Breton West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I was pleased to hear the minister mention about the eastern side of Cape Breton, in particular the Big Pond music festival that takes place every year. Just to focus that, because I want to give the minister a broader or a more in-depth view of really what's taking place within Cape Breton West, particularly along the number 4 highways. The minister well knows the beautiful look-off just on the Richmond-Cape Breton County boundary. which is extremely important for tourism and for the tourists traveling along that highway. Recently, the Minister of Transportation and Public Works, through the auspices of his department, had a similar type look-off developed. It's not entirely complete at this point, but in the Big Pond area. It was an issue I raised in the House last year, and the Minister was very gracious in responding when the opportunity availed itself when they were doing further upgrading. So it's not entirely 100% complete, but it does add to that networking of tourism potential. As well, the Minister well knows some of his colleagues in the music world. Rita McNeil, who has Rita's Tea Room in Big Pond, and that was a collaborative effort. But all three levels of government on a previous day with the Rita McNeil and her enterprises, which yes, I played an active role, at least I feel I did. But the fact of the matter is that was a good investment, and within 6 years, the federal and provincial governments recouped every cent of money that was invested. And now they're making money through the various levels of taxation, whether it be income tax, sales tax, or what have you. Big Pond is also the home of Gordie Sampson, of which we've all recognized in the House here on a previous day. Gordie, singer, songwriter, brings a tremendous amount of credibility to the community. As you move down, you move into the Benyon area, we have Benyon Ski Resort, which now, when you compare it to 1985, when that particular resort was on the tax sale for the municipality because they couldn't afford to even pay the property taxes. And now it has a membership of over 4,100, and with a quad lift, and not only in the winter months, but they also use it in the summer months for tourism and music festivals and so on. So it's quite a rather rich attraction to add to that component. Just recently, in the last year, Birches at Benyon, the owners, Larry and Barb McPherson, showed considerable confidence in the rural economic economy of Cape Breton by building a 4.5-star tourism lodge inn with a restaurant for a seating capacity of over 50 persons. That in itself is extremely positive. We also have a provincial park, campground park, a day park in Benyon as well. The point I'm making, Mr. Minister, through you, Mr. Chair, is that every time there's upgrade on the number 4 highway, there is additional benefits that seem to occur. As well in Big Pond, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention McPherson's cottages that Cyril and Ann McPherson have built in recent years, again showing further investment there. The expansion and the development of the Big Pond Beach, notwithstanding, if you go down to Benyon, you have the McDonald family, MS McDonald family, that have Benyon Beach and Campground. That is sold out every year, and it has been for the last 10 years. These are the types of things that add tremendously to the economy of the various communities in Cape Breton West. As the Minister well knows, I have 33 communities in Cape Breton West. 28 of them are rural in nature. And this type of ribbon economy throughout the rural part of the constituency is extremely, extremely important. It cannot be underestimated. For example, earlier today I introduced a resolution for Eva and Tom Coomer, new Canadian citizens. They received their citizenship less than 2 years ago. And they built the Riverbank restaurant and the Myra River cottages. And they cater to the international market. They're from Switzerland originally, and they are sold out yearly, well in advance. And they cater to a certain clientele, but they also cater to the local economy, the local clientele, whether they're tourists or people just going there if they want to get away for a weekend, or a beautiful meal in some type of Switzerland cultural food. That's the sort of thing that seems to be grabbing hold all the way throughout Cape Breton West. The minister as well knows, for example, if I were to jump across over to the community of Port Morion. Port Morion is known for having the oldest coal mine in North America, the first and the oldest coal mine in North America. It's also known for having the first Boy Scout troop in Canada. Mr. Speaker, every year, Port Morion has what they call Morion Days. That's a week-long festival. And the tremendous amount of economic growth and activity that takes place because of that. And I believe, and I'm going out on a limb on this one, but my sense is that there are perhaps more authors of books, local in nature, in that community than any other community in the province of Nova Scotia. And some have been recommended for provincial awards, some, since, Mr. Speaker, all about the history of Cow Bay. And that was the name of Port Morion long before it was named Port Morion. And so there's a deep, rich cultural and social history that's attached to the Morion area. For example, many folks don't know that Port Caledonia, right over to Donkin, all that area was all part of Glace Bay at one time. It was known as Big Glace Bay. Sometimes it's still referred to as Big Glace Bay. And Glace Bay, as we know now, was referred to as Little Glace Bay. And eventually, when the bridges washed out, you know, the first bridge washed out, and then it was replaced, and back in the early 30s, it was erected again and then washed out, and then all of a sudden that broke down, and they said, okay, well, they're in the outer reaches, they're out in the county section, in the woods section, so we're just going to go with the township. So maybe back even then there was somewhat of a skewed view towards the rural part of the county, but it's so unique. Marconi House, which has so much potential, and really nothing has been done to date to advance that. Mr. Marconi, who we all know, we have a museum dedicated to him in Glace Bay. He lived at Marconi Towers. And that original homestead is there till this very day. And it's just amazing, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chairman, if you were to and the residents that live there are two brothers with their families. It's such a big home that the families are there. Now just one family. They're the sons of Russell Cunningham, who is a member of this legislature, a CCF member of this legislature for many years. And it's amazing how they've been able to maintain the original nature of that home. And it was that they took over from the Marconi family. So, Mr. Speaker, Cape Breton West is steeped in a phenomenal amount of that type of history. I know as well, Mr. Speaker, that if you were to go over and look just recent developments along that whole coastal community, going from the Morion area right through to Louisbourg. For example, going along outside the outskirts of Port Morion, they have what they call the sandbar. It is a very popular swimming area. Never really been fully developed, but tremendous amount of potential. In Port Caledonia, that's the beach area just on the south side, or the southwest side of Glace Bay. It's on the Donkin side of that waterway. And that there is unparalleled in terms of beach potential. I hear time and time again the issue of the Dominion Beach being raised. But one of the biggest problems with the Dominion Beach is that continual wash-in of coal dust that comes in. And no matter how much work is done there, you'll always have coal dust on the beach. And now they have the issue of fecal contamination. So there are other areas that can be looked at to maximize on these type of recreational potentials. As well, Mr. Speaker, if you were to continue south along the coast, the Myra Gut Beach, which is perhaps one of the best beaches on all of Cape Breton Island for children. And what I mean by that is that they can walk out into Myra Bay, which is the inlet of the Atlantic Ocean, for upwards of 600 to 800 feet before they would go over their heads. It's a natural sandbar, and it's beautiful for children. On a busy day, you can have anywhere from 700 to 800 people on that beach at any given time. You continue south again, then you land at the Catalone Gut Beach, which is almost a mile in length. Again, it's a protected beach, but yet the potential has never been realized. You can go south again, and what do you have? You have the Manitou Beach, which is now becoming extremely busy because of what's happened to the Dominion Beach. And Mr. Speaker, if you go further south, you come to the Belfry Beach. You come to Belfry Beach, which we all know is extremely popular. And then you can go to Morrison Beach, and then you can go to Framboise Beach. These are some of the best beaches anywhere in the province of Nova Scotia. And the minister has rightfully pointed out, one of the problems we're having is infrastructure and the quality of the roads. And I know the minister is right in saying that the government has now focused on the issue of roads in Cape Breton, in particular the eastern side of Cape Breton and rural part of Cape Breton, which is desperate in need of infrastructure. Presently, some work is being done on the Marion Bridge Highway. There's a need for much more. The minister knows full well the Myra River. Of course, we all know that that's where I hail from, Grand Myra South. And we're getting closer to the Minister of Education's attachment in the Gabrouse area, because that's where his wife's family has many connections. Mr. Speaker, at Marion Bridge, we have Tigger's Tea Room. We have a restaurant there. We have a lot of tourist potential. And I'm sure there was a previous premier in this House that seemed to have an attachment to the Myra. At least he knew the song, Out on the Myra. There was much consternation and debate as to whether he really had the right tune. But that's an issue for debate that'll go on for many, many years. Mr. Speaker, as well, it's an issue I raised with the minister a little earlier prior to his estimates coming up, and it's perhaps one I'll ask a question on before I continue. And that's with regards to the parish and community hall in Grand Myra South. That unfortunately that community was faced with a very destructive situation. The hall burnt down. We're given to understand it was an electrical fire. It's the only community-based facility there that's available left in Grand Myra South, or Grand Myra South, which services Grand Myra South, Grand Myra North, Upper Grand Myra, Victoria Bridge, as far down as Juniper Mountain and Campbelldale Road. So I would ask the minister, what programs are available that may be able to assist this community to see the reconstruction of some type of facility that would help to maintain the lifeline in rural Nova Scotia?
Minister of Tourism, Culture and Heritage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the member. Mr. Chairman, I'll start off with the last part of what the member was talking about, and that of the Grand Myra Hall. It's very unfortunate that the hall did burn, as the member has mentioned. What I would encourage the member through the organization is to make contact with Health Promotion, our individual in Colleen Chisholm, who the member is very much aware of, our regional person in Sydney, that I think there may be an opportunity for us to become involved and for them to attain some funding perhaps on the planning assistance side, first of all. And Dave Malloy is our facilities gentleman, the head for facilities management across the province. And certainly Mr. Malloy could be of assistance in that. And I will ensure that that happens between my staff and yourself. Secondly, that once that planning is done, they can apply through the Recreational Facilities Development Program, where they could get up to a third for the construction of what is a very important building. I've been in other buildings in the members' riding, such as the fire hall in Big Pond, and I can tell you culturally it's very important. I've tried the stage out, Mr. Chairman. It's a very good stage as well. And but these sorts of investments are important. Culturally, they're important from a community standpoint, and certainly the member brings up a good point, and I'm glad to hear that he is speaking up on behalf of his constituents, as he does here on a regular basis. Mr. Chairman, before I forget too, I just want to make sure, and I'll continue with the member's answer, I forgot to announce the others who were with me earlier, be it Scott Logan, the ADM, who was with me here at Health Promotion down below, and Tanya Roach, the budget manager. So I apologize to both those individuals. We also have individuals here from immigration, and I don't know if we're going to get to questions, but Elizabeth Mills was here, executive director, and Clarence Guest as well. And who's with Justice, but CSU through immigration. I simply want to mention that because I would deeply regret if I did forget that. One of the key pieces to what the member talked about is that of the importance of his particular area of Cape Breton of Nova Scotia, and I couldn't agree with the member more. I've traveled along there. The need for further investment in our transportation system there, it is needed. I know the member has brought this attention on the floor many, many times on behalf of his constituents, and certainly I think that's important to recognize. I also recognize that the Minister of Transportation has made significant investment already, but there is still more to be made along that route. Yeah, and he says it comes under my budget. Well, unfortunately or fortunately, it doesn't. But I think what it does point to is that the Minister of Transportation and Transportation recognize that those types of investments in those critical tourism routes are vital, and that's where he's doing a fine job on route number 4. I can point to the Cabot Trail, be it in the member from Victoria's riding, as an example through Middle River and places like that. I mean, those to me are common sense investments on areas which we are promoting, and certainly I thank Transportation for their collaboration with that. He mentioned the good food that's in his part of the island in Nova Scotia. It certainly fits well within the wine and cuisine strategy we also have, which is an industry-led strategy. He mentioned culture. Obviously, Gordy Sampson, who was a friend and a fellow musician as well, and certainly someone who is helping, along with Rita McNeil, to bring Big Pond and put it on the map once again. Now, he did mention one other thing culturally, and I'm going to mention it. He mentioned Little Glace Bay and Big Glace Bay, right? Well, a lot of times that doesn't happen by accident, and you will hear about, if you're from Antigonish or Glasgow, you'll hear about Ballamore or Ballabeck, the small town or the little town in Gaelic, it's the same as Mabu, Mabubeck or Mabuvor. So I wouldn't hesitate to guess that Glace Bay, Little Glace Bay and Big Glace Bay comes a result of the Gaelic. And it'd be interesting to look at the history of that, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised. Yes, well, I like I said, in Mabu, there's West Mabu, which is often referred to for their cultural dances and their beach and so on, is actually Little Mabu, Mabubeck. Mr. Chairman, sorry. The final point I want to make is that on tourism destination kits, and one of the kits, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. The tourism destination kits were put in place so that communities could identify their strengths and identify the areas where they needed to work on. And I would encourage all members of the House, including the member from Cape Breton West, who was put forward the question, to take that opportunity. It's a great way to pull people together in the community as well, to talk to some of the leaders, identify the strengths, and like anywhere, their strengths and their weaknesses, and I would certainly encourage that. Book publishing is one of the things the member also mentioned. And I've been taking notes, so that's why I want to mention there's additional funding in the budget this year, an additional $50,000 on top of $86,000, I believe it was, and there are opportunities for to help promote Nova Scotia's book publishing sector, as well as promoting books which are with the work done here in Nova Scotia. And again, that's done as a complement to what's called the BIPI-DIP program federally. So I would encourage the member as well to look through that. I don't know if I touched on various aspects of the member's questions, but I would hand it back to the member for further questions.
The honourable member from Cape Breton West.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you. I was a little worried. He was giving so much information. His colleagues were taking notes, and I'm afraid they may gobble up the budget before even the vote takes place. But, Mr. Speaker, some of the other issues, obviously, that have been raised in recent days, particularly as the minister would be aware of the issues surrounding the Fleur-de-Lis Trail and some of the issues on that, and there's been so much talk and activity and sometimes controversy about that. But I've just flagged that with the minister because obviously it's so important. That's the connection between Louisbourg and Ocean View, which is the lead into Gabrousse, and that's where the last piece of asphalt was done. I still maintain till this very moment that the departmental staff should be focusing along the old existing trail, which was used right up until approximately 1968. And the argument saying that it's sensitive, archaeologically sensitive, doesn't seem to hold with a lot of residents. If they would go that instead of that new route, you'd save about $7.5 million, and it's just absolutely panoramic, the view. So I leave that with the minister. When you get to Louisbourg, as the minister well knows, the Fortress of Louisbourg is the crown jewel, and I would encourage the minister perhaps some collaborative effort with the federal government in doing some additional marketing, because I was always concerned, particularly when representatives from the Cape Breton Economic Development Authority appeared before public accounts at one time, indicated that wasn't really their responsibility to advance promotional of the Fortress of Louisbourg, and I was a little bit confused on that. As the minister well knows, every year the Louisbourg Crab Fest, it's a 3-day festival, music and food festival, has become an extremely, extremely popular event in the town, attracting anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000 tourists and residents alike. And it's this type of activity that generates a lot of the spin-off economies, benefits in rural Cape Breton. Again, in that whole general proximity, the minister knows that we have the Two River Wildlife Park. Considerable, actually, we're leading well into the millions of dollars of investment that have been made into that wildlife park since it was privatized several years back. And perhaps if the minister and his department could take the opportunity, if for no other reason, have somebody from his department go to that site and do a tour. It would be absolutely, it's amazing to see all the positive things that have taken place there. As well, the Myra Provincial Park. I recall when your previous colleague in the House here, Minister John Leaf, when he was Minister of Natural Resources, he undertook to see a substantial investment. It was an opposition-held riding, but still, he made the right policy decision to invest in showers and proper washroom facilities, and that has created major spin-off investments. As well, Mr. Speaker, in Escazone, the cultural and the conference center that has been constructed there, overlooking the Bador Lakes, actually built right out over the Bador Lakes, half of it, and it's just absolutely breathtaking for different interest groups and organizations that could go there, and it's open for that type of facility. Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chairman as well, the Manitou Coastal Community Center. I raised that in the House several weeks ago. That in itself is a rather substantial investment. I'm making all these individual points because
Order. It's difficult to hear the honourable member from Cape Breton West, the honourable member with 30 seconds left.
well, that's, Mr. Speaker, I realize all members are getting really excited about wanting to vote for the budget, irrespective of whether it's yay or nay. But I can safely say, Mr. Speaker, in my view, it's a good budget and it's good for Nova Scotia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The 40 hours for estimates has expired. Yeah, your resolution. Please, the Honourable Minister of Tourism, Culture and Heritage.
Just read the resolution, Mr. Chairman. Resolved that a sum not exceeding $22,254,000 be granted to the Lieutenant Governor to defray expenses in respect of the Executive Council pursuant to the estimate, and for the Office of Immigration, be it resolved that a sum not exceeding. I apologize, sorry, Mr. Chairman. That included Office of Immigration. Be it resolved that a sum not exceeding $23,919,000 be granted to the Lieutenant Governor to defray expenses in respect to the Office of Health Promotion pursuant to the estimate, and resolved that a sum not exceeding $42,383,000 be granted to the Lieutenant Governor to defray expenses in respect to the Department of Tourism, Culture and Heritage pursuant to the estimate. The business plan of the Archive of Nova Scotia be approved, and I'd like to thank the staff, Mr. Speaker, and the members for the questions.
That concludes our 40 hours of estimates. I'd like to call upon the honourable member from Kings North to report on the subcommittee on supply, please.
Thank you very much. The subcommittee has completed its 40 hours of estimates of the departments that were assigned to it.
Thank you very much. Shall all remaining resolutions carry? It's for the Speaker. Yeah, the motion is carried. The Committee on the Whole will now rise, and the Speaker will attend. Yeah.
Chairman of the Committee of the Whole House of Supply reports.
The committee has met for the total of 40 hours, as well as the subcommittee for that same amount of time. And the chairman's been instructed to recommend the estimates, being 43 a number, to the favorable consideration of the House without amendment.
Motion is the House concurs with the report of the Committee of the Whole House of Supply. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, would you please call the order of business introduction of bills?
Introduction of bills. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Provide for Defraying Certain Charges and Expenses of the Public Service of the Province. Mr. Speaker, the bill is printed, and I ask that a page distribute a copy to each member.
The Honourable Minister of Finance begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Provide for Defraying Certain Charges and Expenses of the Public Service of the Province.
Bill number 215, entitled An Act to Provide for Defraying Certain Charges and Expenses of the Public Service of the Province.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I move second reading of Bill 215, the Appropriations Act 2005.
The Honourable Minister of Finance moves second reading of Bill 215, the Appropriations Act 2005. All those in favor say aye. Recorded vote has been called for. We'll ring the bells to the satisfaction of the whips. Wait a second. Order, please. Whip satisfied? Yes. Recorded vote is, whips are satisfied. The recorded vote has been called on second reading of Bill 215. Clerks will call the roll. All those in favor will say aye. Contrary minded, nay.
Mr. Clark.
Aye.
Mr. Morse.
Yes.
Mr. Rodney McDonald.
Yes.
Mr. Russell.
Yes.
Mr. Ham.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Muir.
Yes.
Mr. Christie.
Yes.
Mr. Fage.
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac.
Yes.
Ms. Bolivar Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. D'Entremont.
Oui.
Mr. Hurlbert.
Yes.
Mr. Barnett.
Yes.
Mr. Morash.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. DeWolf.
Yes.
Mr. Dukes.
Yes.
Mr. Ron Chisholm.
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon.
Yes.
Mr. Langell.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Mr. Parent.
Aye.
Miss Massey.
Yes.
Mr. McDonnell.
Yes.
Mr. Corbett.
Yes.
Miss Maureen McDonald.
Yes.
Mr. Dexter.
Yes.
Mr. Duvall.
Yes.
Mr. Manning McDonald.
No.
Mr. Sampson.
No.
Mr. Glavine.
No.
Mr. Wilson.
No.
Mr. Caldwell.
No.
Miss Whalen.
No.
Mr. McNeil.
No.
Mr. Gaudette.
No.
Mr. Steele.
Yes.
Miss Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Miss Raymond.
Yes.
Mr. Epstein.
Aye.
Mr. Pye.
Yes.
Mr. Goss.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson, David A. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Estabrooks.
Aye.
Mr. Sampson.
No.
Mr. Theriault.
No.
Mr. Graham.
No. Those in support.
Order, please, clerk.
Those in support of the motion 39, those opposed 11.
Motion is carried. Bill 215, entitled An Act to Provide for Deferring Certain Charges and Expenses to the Public Service of the Province. Order, please, Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I move second reading of the Financial Measures Act.
Third.
Third reading of the Financial Measures Act.
No. Order, please. Order, please. Bill 215, Appropriations Act, before the House.
I move third reading of the Appropriations Act.
Motion. Now, Mr. Finance moves third reading of Bill 215, Appropriations Act 2005. House ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Bill 215, entitled An Act to Provide for Deferring Certain Charges and Expenses to the Public Service of the Province. Bill is passed to be titled is read by the clerk. The Honorable Government House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call the order of business public bills for second reading?
Public bills for second reading.
Would you please call Bill number 177, Financial Measures Act 2005?
Motion is for second reading of Bill 177. House ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried.
Bill 177, entitled An Act Respecting Certain Financial Measures.
Bill is passed. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call the order of business, beg your pardon, would you please call Bill number 202, the Children and Family Services Act?
Bill number 202, the Children and Family Services Act. Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Bill number 202, the Family and Children's and Services Act, the Children and Family Services Act, and an act that will greatly enhance the ability of open adoptions and to allow them when access orders are in place.
Motion is for second reading of Bill 202. The Honourable Member of Dartmouth South, Portland Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we applaud the intent of giving more stable, loving family relationships to children in permanent care of the minister. We do have some concerns with some clauses in this legislation, but we certainly support moving it to law amendments, and we'll discuss those concerns in more detail. And we're also looking forward to hearing from some of the family advocate groups in Nova Scotia. So we will be supporting it to second reading.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Community Services to close debate on Bill 202. Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we close debate on second reading of Bill 202, the Children and Family Services Act.
Motion is for second reading of Bill 202. Is the House ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried.
Bill 202, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 5 of the Acts of 1990, the Children and Family Services Act.
This bill be referred to the Committee on Law Amendments. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Please call the order of business public bills for third reading, Mr. Speaker.
Public bills for third reading.
Speaker, we'll start at the top of the list. Bill number 117, the Emergency Health Services Act.
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this bill be now read the third time.
Somebody.
I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand here today, encouraged that this piece of legislation is coming forward. A little bit disappointed, and I know I stated this during committee of the whole House, but I'll definitely state it again today that this piece of legislation should have been brought forward to this House many years ago, Mr. Speaker. When they decided to change the system we've seen here in Nova Scotia, I think this piece of legislation should have came forward at that time. I know that through the process of calling this bill earlier, and I think it was last session when we called it, there was concerns, especially from the member from Cumberland County about some of the issues around Cumberland South?
Colchester North?
Colchester North, sorry about that. I know the member from Colchester North had brought some concerns about the first responder unit in that area that responded, that this bill was going to really pertain to, and had some implications to what they did up in that area, Mr. Speaker. And the one thing I'm concerned about is that, with this piece of legislation, we stated it back in the last session that we were in favor of this. We knew that this was something we needed to go forward with, and that it was something that should have been done years ago when the system changed. But the concern I had that on that last day of the last session, Mr. Speaker, that this bill wasn't called. And I know the member and the Speaker of the House at the time had concerns with it, but the thing that I realized through this whole process is that, when we're dealing with pieces of legislation that pertains to the safety and well-being of Nova Scotians, then we shouldn't be playing politics with it. And I said it then, I'll say it again, that I can't believe that the Minister of Health would allow this piece of legislation to be shelved for many months when it dealt with the safety of Nova Scotians. And I respect the Speaker of the House. I respect him as a Speaker. I respect him as an elected official to represent his area. But most importantly, I respect him as his former profession as a police officer. And with all due respect to that, I couldn't believe that he was playing politics with the safety of Nova Scotians. The system we have here in the province today is the best in North America. I know it is. And many of the members here, many of the members in the government side, have stood on their feet and said that we have the best system here across the country. We have the best system in North America. And to think that we were playing politics with this piece of legislation really disappointed me. I was very disappointed with the implications of why we didn't call it in the last session. I was all ready to stand up in support of this piece of legislation then. I am now. I understand that there's a new agreement with the first responders in that area, but I just want to say that how I was disappointed with how everything transpired, Mr. Speaker, and how that the safety and well-being of the people of our province was put in jeopardy because of a piece of legislation and because of political intervention. And the Premier himself, as a physician of this province, should realize the implication that holding that piece of legislation had on the safety of those people in that area. It's the government's job to go in there and ensure that these people in that area realize what is the best course of action when it comes to, especially when emergency health services is involved, Mr. Speaker. Not only are that I have concerns with the people in that area, but I know that the Minister of Tourism, Heritage and Culture recently made an announcement for that area for money being infused for a new interpretive center about fossils. So what that's going to do, Mr. Speaker, is that's going to bring, hopefully, more people from out of the province, tourism, to that area. And I believe the area I'm referring to is the Joggins area. And I know that the first responders unit in that area was the one that the Speaker had some issues with when it came to this piece of legislation. I remember about 3 months ago, Mr. Speaker, going up to Spring Hill. I had the opportunity to stop into one of the paramedic bases up there and just ask them about what they thought the process here, we were going through the legislature, the process of this piece of legislation. And I was amazed to find out how passionate the paramedics in that area, Spring Hill and Amherst, and the concerns they had about what was going on in that part of the province, in Joggins and River Hibbert, Mr. Speaker. And I don't stand here today begrudging anything that first responders do in this province. I was a first responder, and I know the importance of having first responders especially in the rural parts of our province. They're the first ones that can go and assess a situation, an emergency in an area, and they're an important part of the healthcare system. They're an important part of the emergency health services system. And for me to stand here and realize that, the piece of legislation that we called in the last session wasn't going to be passed until they had an agreement, I'm disappointed with that. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to see that this piece of legislation is called now. I'm glad to see that the people in Joggins and River Hibbert will have access to what I think is the best service in North America, Mr. Speaker. We have a high-performance emergency health services system that can respond and really bring the emergency department to your house, to the side of the highway, to the schools, to the ditches, Mr. Speaker. And I'm glad to see this finally come through the House with some disappointments on the process. And it really opened my eyes on how government plays with the safety of Nova Scotians and plays politics when it comes to this. And with this, Mr. Speaker, I know the Speaker of the House will definitely state some words on this, but I'm encouraged with the agreement that I'm aware about that's going to happen up there, where EHS is going to be called initially. And I stated in law amendments the last time, and I'll state it again now, Mr. Speaker, I'll be the first one to stand up in the legislature and demand that EMC and EHS put a 24-hour ambulance service in the communities of Joggins, in the community of River Hibbert, if that is what warrants it. If the contract that EHS and EMC have with the government isn't met, I'll be the first one to stand up, and I'm sure the Speaker of the House will stand up with me and call for that service to be implemented there. But the problem we seen was that initially they weren't even being called, Mr. Speaker. We had no records of any calls or any performances that EHS had in that area, because the fire department were being called first. They went to the calls. They initiated EHS, which in my view is the wrong approach. And I'm glad that we did come to an understanding. There is an agreement in place that will allow the fire department to expand their services and hopefully get support from Department of Health. And I'm looking forward to that agreement progressing, and that the people in that area will have the benefit of the service that we have in this province that the rest of us have. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I gladly approve and hope that this goes through the House.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I'll recognize the Honourable Member for Glace Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To be more correct, thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And we too are encouraged in the Liberal caucus by this bill. I'm discouraged to some degree by the remarks that I've heard from the member from Sackville-Cobequid. I'm discouraged by the fact that he chose to play politics with this issue and to try and call into question the character of the Speaker of this legislature, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I am very discouraged by that. The Speaker of this legislature, I will not sit down, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I will stand in my place as the Speaker of this legislature stood in his place.
Order.
And defended his constituents.
Order. Honourable Member for Glace Bay has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, the House Leader for the NDP can call me as many names as he wants, Mr. Speaker, but I will stand in my place for as long as it takes possible to make sure that my concerns and the Liberal Party concerns are heard in this legislature just as well as the New Democratic Party, Mr. Speaker. That will be done as long as I am breathing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I said, to question another member of the legislature for simply standing up for his constituents is not proper behavior, in my opinion, Mr. Speaker, and I take exception to those remarks. This is a good piece of legislation, one that took some time, Mr. Speaker, took some time. But that's important because things sometimes take time to develop. Quality things take time to develop. Let's not forget, Mr. Speaker, and I'll agree with the member for Sackville-Cobequid, that the emergency health system in this province is one of the best in North America, And thank goodness, Mr. Speaker, that we had a Liberal government that started that system and a Liberal health minister that nourished that system, Mr. Speaker. Thank goodness for those things. Mr. Speaker, one thing we'll never have is an NDP government that'll claim credit for anything in Nova Scotia. I can guarantee you that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to the people of River Hibbert, to the people of Joggins and area, they should be saying to their member of the Legislative Assembly, our Speaker, congratulations for standing up on our behalf. The problem has been worked out. Now the constituents of that area will have access to one of the greatest systems in the world. And I thank you for your time, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Member for Cumberland South.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And first thing I want to offer thank the members for the opportunity tonight to speak in favor of Bill 117. I want to thank the minister for bringing this bill forward.
Hear, hear.
I've been in this legislature for 7 years, and I've heard members on both sides of this House speak favorably in regards to our fire departments across this province. And This fire department that has provided the CPR unit service in the River Hebert Joggins area has done so for 25 years. But something I learned at a very young age as a police officer was that just because I came into the system and had the advantage of proper training, maybe that other people didn't have the opportunity of, I should never ever look down upon those people. And those people never had the opportunity to have the type of training that our EHS people have in this province. But they provided a very credible, professional service to the people of the Joggins River Hebert area for 25 years. And when Bill 117 went to law amendments, the chiefs of those two fire departments, Chief Geordie Rector and Chief John Reed, who was actually the counselor for the area as well, appeared here. And I was very proud of them and proud of the facts that they presented to the Law Amendments Committee. The fact of the matter is, the people of that area are proud of that professional service as well. In fact, the people of that area, who should have some say in this matter, wanted that service to continue for many years to come as it has in the past. But they knew that a change had to come. And they know, as I know, that this Bill 117 is a positive change for the area. But make no mistake about it, that the arrangement that has been made with the River Hebert Fire Department and the Joggins Fire Department and EHS and the Department of Health is the best enhanced service in this province. And I'm very proud that I was able to be part of that and to ensure that the people of that area will continue to receive the service in the future as they have in the past. As I mentioned about Chief John Reed and Chief Geordie Rector were certainly a big part of that. There's some people I want to mention in the department that were part of it as well. Darrell Wilson from the area as well was part of that group, and he certainly was very effective. Mr. Dennis Holland, who's the Department of Health, played a large role in us being able to come to an agreement at the end of the day that is something that we all can be proud of. Mr. Jeff Frazier of the 911 Center over in Dartmouth, very much part of that agreement as well. And I'd like to say that when we had a public meeting in the area, these people appeared with myself and the people, and they support this as well. The people from the 911 EHS Center support this agreement wholeheartedly. In fact, they're in the process now of doing training with those firefighters in that area to ensure that the best service in Nova Scotia can be offered to the people of that area. So, although we may disagree in here, who's for it and who's against it, I can tell you the people at EHS, people in the 911 Center, the people who are the very people the honourable member across the way talked about, who are the best trained in this country, in North America, are supportive of this agreement as well. The other person I'd like to mention that deserves a lot of credit and a lot of recognition here tonight is a gentleman by the name of Dr. David Rippey. Dr. Rippey has been with the Department of Health for the last number of years. And when this became an issue last fall, David Rippey, who I've known as a general practitioner in the town of Spring Hill, who is very well respected there, and who provided a wonderful service to people of the community before he went with the Department of Health. Dr. Rippey is ill, but he didn't let his illness stand in the way of. He very much believed in the fact that this bill should go through the House. He believed very much in the fact that the people of the area of River Hebert Jogging should be able to receive the best service possible. And this gentleman wanted to come himself with me to River Hebert to meet with the people to ensure that the best possible package could be developed. And again, Dr. Rippey deserves a lot of credit. His health wouldn't allow him to do that. And Dr. Rippey deserves not only respect to myself and everyone in this legislature, but the people across this province, because he has made tremendous steps in regards to health in this province. And I think that Dr. Rippey deserves a round of applause from everyone in this House for the great things he's done in health across this province. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I just want to say that, yes, maybe it was mentioned across the way that maybe this bill should have passed in the fall, and I agree with that, but I was not prepared to stand by and let a volunteer fire department, the rural part of the constituency I represent, be shoved aside and to be totally ignored in regards to the service they provided to the people of the area for 25 years, when I saw an opportunity to work with the department and the minister and his staff and with those people in that area to come up with a really enhanced service that the people of the area could be proud of and I could be proud of. And I can tell you that I'm very pleased with the end result, and I think that all members in this House should be pleased that we were able to achieve something that's positive on behalf of those people. And I might say I believe that department is the last department in this province that we're providing that type of service. And this arrangement that has been made will provide, as far as I'm concerned, the best enhanced EHS service anywhere in the province of Nova Scotia, and it's in the River Hebert Joggings area, and I'm very proud to represent that area, and I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health's closed debate in 117.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I can say, Mr. Speaker, that all speakers in this House heard the Speaker speak tonight. But I think the points that were raised in the debate on third reading point to the, I've been around this place off and on for a while, and oh, don't get your hopes up. I left prematurely the first time. I don't intend to make that mistake the second time. Rarely, Mr. Speaker, in my time around here have I seen an example of the role of an MLA being fulfilled in the way it was fulfilled with respect to this legislation. And well, I'm not going to hold the House up much longer, but there are times when it's appropriate to say things, because I can tell you that that what I'm saying now is not necessarily something that would have come out of my mouth in the fall. But I've come to appreciate the needs of a community, and I believe that the public service has also come to appreciate the need of taking into account communities and the characters that make up communities, the characteristics of communities. What we corrected